Hello students, let's continue with the red blood cells. So, we will discuss about the function of red blood cells. So, the primary function is the transport function, transport of oxygen and carbon dioxide, transport of oxygen from lungs to the tissues. 97% of oxygen will be transported in this particular form, that is oxyhemoglobin, and transport of carbon dioxide from tissues to the lungs. So, here 30% of carbon dioxide is transported in the form of carbohemoglobin. RBC, it also contains the large amount of carbonic anhydrase, which helps to transport carbon dioxide in the form of bicarbonate from tissues to the lungs. 63% of carbon dioxide, it is transported in the form of bicarbonate. The next function is the buffering action in the blood. RBC, it helps to maintain the pH of the blood. So, that is called as the buffering action in the blood. RBC also helps in blood group determination. RBC carries blood group antigens like A antigen, B antigen and RH factor. This helps in the determination of blood group and enables to prevent the reaction. Next, we will see about the variations in the number of red blood cells. So, here we have two parts, physiological variations and pathological variations. First, let us discuss about the physiological variations. So, first is the increase in RBC count. It is also called as physiological polycythemia. So, increase in RBC count in physiological conditions you can see in following conditions. So, first one is the age. So, in newborn babies the RBC count is very high, and as the baby grows up it will come back to its normal numbers. So, in the newborn babies the RBC count will be around 10 millions per cubic mm, and as the baby grows up, when it reaches to adult stage, it will come back to 4.5 to 5 millions per cubic mm. And next is the sex. So, there is a gender differentiation between the males and females. Before puberty and after menopause, the RBC count in males and females, it will be almost equal. And during the menstrual period or during the reproductive cycle, the RBC count in the females, it will be slightly less comparing to males. In the females, during the reproductive period, the RBC count will be 4.5 millions per cubic mm, and whereas in males it is 5 millions per cubic mm. And next is high altitude. So, what do you mean by high altitude? So, it is above the sea level, that is about 10,000 feet above from the mean sea level. So, that is called as high altitude. So, in high altitude the person will develop hypoxia, and hypoxia will stimulate the erythropoietin, and that will stimulate the production of more and more amount of red blood cells from the bone marrow. So, RBC count will be increased in high altitude. And next is the muscular exercise. So, when you perform muscular exercise, the spleen will be compressed and there will be sympathetic stimulation, and that increases the secretion of adrenaline and it increases the production of red blood cells. And in emotional conditions, again during emotional conditions like anxiety, so the RBC count will be increased, so because of secretion of more and more amount of adrenaline hormone. And when the body environmental temperature, when it increases, even the RBC count will be increased. And after meals, so immediately after meals the body's metabolic rate will be speed up. So, because of increased metabolic rate, it needs more and more amount of oxygen. So, to meet the demand of oxygen, the RBC count will be increased. So, because of these all things, the RBC count will be increased in these conditions. And next physiological variation is decrease in the RBC count. Mainly in high barometric pressure, the oxygen tension increases, so the RBC count will decrease. And during sleep, so during sleep all the metabolic activities in our body they will be slowed down. So, when the metabolic activities are slowed down, there is no more requirement for oxygen. So, the RBC count will be decreased. And during pregnancy, so during pregnancy ECF volume will be increased, plasma volume will be increased, so there will be hemodilution. So, the concentration of blood cells will be decreased. So, by high barometric pressure and during sleep and during pregnancy conditions, the RBC count will be generally low. These are the physiological variations. Next we will see about the pathological variations. So, here again you have increase in RBC count and decrease in RBC count. So, increase in RBC count, that is called as pathological polycythemia, and decrease in RBC count, it is called as anemia. Anemia we will discuss again in separate session. So, increase in RBC count, that is called as pathological polycythemia, where you can see there will be abnormal increase in the RBC count above 7 millions per cubic mm. So, increase in RBC count will go more than 7 millions per cubic mm. So, here again you have two types, primary polycythemia and secondary polycythemia. Primary polycythemia, it is also called as polycythemia vera. Polycythemia vera, it is mainly characterized by persistent increase in the RBC count above 14 millions per cubic mm of blood, and it is associated with increased WBC count above 24,000 per cubic mm of blood. It occurs in mainly myeloproliferative disorders like malignancy of red bone marrow, that is called as the primary polycythemia. So, next session let us discuss about the secondary polycythemia. Thank you.